I'm Femi OK. So far this month, an unprecedented 4,000 asylum seekers have crossed the US border into Canada, most of them Haitians.
The government of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has been fighting what it says is a wave of misinformation on how easy it is to be granted asylum in Canada. So what's the reality for those entering? I'm Malika Bilal, and you're in the stream.
Thousands of Haitians are fleeing the US to Canada because they fear that once the special protected status they were given after the 2010 earthquake expires in 2018, they will be deported back to Haiti.
Justin Trudeau has responded to criticisms that his administration didn't have the situation under control. Take a look at this.
Canada is an open and welcoming society because Canadians have confidence in our immigration system and have confidence that we are a country based on laws. You will not be at advantage if you choose to enter Canada irregularly. You must follow the rules, and there are many. Our number one job is to protect our citizens, and we will enforce the existing rules to keep our communities safe. Now, that being said, we have taken many steps at all orders of government to address the current situation with asylum seekers.
The Canadian military has set up tents on the border, and hundreds of people are being temporarily sheltered in the Montreal Olympic Stadium while they wait for their cases to be heard.
Mark Holland joins us now. He's a Member of Parliament in Canada and also Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness. Hello, Mark. I'm going to pull up a tweet from your Prime Minister. I'm pretty much sure that you know which tweet it is. You could probably quote it back to me. To those fleeing persecution, terror and war, Canadians will welcome you regardless of your faith. Diversity is our strength. Hashtag welcome to Canada. If you could rewrite that tweet, Mark, what would you do?
I wouldn't rewrite the tweet. I think that the sentiment behind that tweet is at the core of really what Canada is all about. Refugees are the most vulnerable people in the world, and those who are fleeing prosecution, who are fleeing persecution, who are fleeing treatment that's abhorrent. Canada has to play its role and do its part to protect those individuals that are the most vulnerable. And Canada has been taking in historically high numbers of refugees. However, there is a limit to the number that we can take in. We are going to play more than our role. We're going to punch above our weight as a nation. We're going to continue to do that. But there's a process that people have to abide by. And there's misinformation that is circulating that there's a way to circumvent our normal processes by arriving here irregularly. That's not the case. There is no free ticket to Canada. We have rules that are in place to ensure that we do take in the most vulnerable and that we do our part and punch above our weight internationally, and that's exactly what we intend to keep doing.
Mark, you mentioned the rules, but we got this tweet from Toby who says, yeah, this is tongue-in-cheek, they're welcoming them for welfare and housing on our dime. Thanks for the tweets, JT. And of course, that is Justin Trudeau he is referencing there. Clearly, there's a segment of society that do believe those tweets are welcoming people that maybe otherwise would not come to Canada. What do you say to that segment of society? And where do you think that this comes from?
Well, first of all, our focus is not on vulnerable refugees, those who are fleeing persecution, those who are leaving absolutely abhorrent situations. And the numbers around the finances, as Canada over its history has taken in refugees from various crises, has been that refugees are less likely to be on social assistance, are less likely to commit crimes. Over the duration of their time in Canada, actually pay more in taxes, are more likely to hire other Canadians, and generally end up being some of our best citizens. And those numbers are irrefutable. And as a nation that's built on immigration, it's important to keep those numbers in mind. But it doesn't mean that people can, just leave where they are because they want a better financial opportunity in Canada. That's not the nature of how our refugee system works, and it's why when individuals arrive, and it's important that they arrive regularly, that they make applications through the proper process, that those that need protection, that need safe harbor, are the ones that we give attention to. Those who are in a stable, secure situation but wanting to take advantage of Canada's wealth. We're not in a position, obviously, to extend our borders open to that extent.
Mark, you mentioned irregular immigration. That's a phrase that Justin Trudeau has also used. Reuters was on one of the unofficial border crossings back on August the 2nd and August the 3rd. I just want to show our audience what that actually looks like. So have a listen to what's happening at some of the unofficial border crossings.
Monsieur, anglais, français, English or French? Monsieur, vous n'avez pas le droit de traverser. You cannot cross. If you cross, I will arrest you. Sir, you understand that? Vous n'avez pas le droit de traverser. For those who speak English, do you understand that you've crossed the border illegally? Yes?
Mark, do you think the Canadian government has lost control of what's happening in terms of irregular immigration, to quote you?
Not at all. Look, the reality is the numbers at the border fluctuate. The numbers that we're seeing right now are actually been down over the last week, and we're seeing those numbers pull back. And in 2001 and 2008, we saw similar numbers to the numbers we're seeing this year. So what we would expect is there are circumstances that drive higher numbers in particular years. And often what individuals find out who do cross irregularly is that there's no free ticket to Canada, that the information that they get that they can simply cross the border and become a Canadian citizen is inaccurate. If somebody crosses the border in an irregular fashion, they will be apprehended. We're obviously going to immediately do security checks and health checks to determine whether or not they are a threat. If it's determined they're a threat, they will be detained. They will appear before a quasi-judicial process, and there will be a determination as to the legitimacy and veracity of their refugee claim. If they are not indeed legitimate refugees, then they will be sent back. And so we see these numbers fluctuate, come up and come down. And the numbers that we're seeing now, while elevated, are numbers that are not unparalleled. They've happened in other years. But it's important for us to correct some of the misinformation that sometimes is behind this surge in numbers.
Well, Mark, you mentioned what would happen if people coming over are not legitimate refugees, but there's a question here from Angeles. She says, overall, I think Trudeau is sincere with his compassion for refugees, but the will to commit resources isn't there. So if people are legitimate refugees, what are the concrete steps that the government is willing to take for them in their situation?
Well, you're going to see in 2017 the largest number of refugees ever accepted by Canada. Canada is really extending its efforts in a historic way to help the world's most vulnerable people. And as we know, unfortunately and very sadly, there are more displaced peoples now and a greater movement of peoples than we've seen in well over a generation. And that demands the world's attention, and it demands that we step up our resources. That's why you're seeing us expand the numbers that we're willing to take. That's why we're looking, particularly as we did in Syria, at regions that are in very high conflict with individuals who are very imperiled, and making sure that we allocate resources to process them, to welcome them to Canada, to do our fair part. And that's what Canada has done historically when there's been regions that are under a tremendous pressure and under enormous distress. We've stepped up. And interestingly, I would point out that there has been a really bright side to that compassion beyond the humanity of caring for people who are in horrific situations, that economically Canada has been greatly advantaged financially and culturally by people who've come to our shores who've made enormous contributions.
Okay. Mark, it's good to have you here with us to give us the government perspective. Appreciate your time today. Take care. So
Thank you so much.
We will continue, so very welcome. We'll continue our conversation now with France Andre. He's an activist with the Action Committee for People Without Status in Montreal. In the US state of California, Candice Malcolm is a columnist with the Toronto Sun and author of Losing True North. And in the US state of Florida, Jacqueline Charles, she's a journalist with the Miami Herald. Good to have you here, everybody. France, take us into Canada, the other side of the border, this irregular immigration that is happening. How organized is it, would you say? Give us an example.
Thank you for the question, but I think we need to remember what happened in 2014, first of all. We had immigrants that were received here, welcomed here after the 2004, some violences in Haiti, and after the earthquake 2010. And we had a similar TPS here in Canada, which actually was lifted in December 2014. And this is how our committee was created in order to protect 3,200 of our brothers and sisters in Canada which are exposed to be returned in Haiti. So what TPS has done, the lifting of TPS, we've done in Canada since 2014. So the situation here, actually for the past few weeks, has been exactly what has been said. It's a very high, constant coming into the border. I think we were not ready as a country to welcome as many, even though I think there was a warning since early January that it would happen. To my knowledge, there was a lawyer in Florida that has warned Canada this is what's going to be happening this summer.
All right. So, France, TPS, use the phrase TPS, temporary protected status. I asked you what it was like the other side of the border. You didn't get round to that, but Candice, you shared this from your Twitter feed. Here's the scene in Montreal as thousands queue up outside an immigration Canadian office. Trudeau says the situation is under control. Really? And then these scenes here. What are you seeing? What are you hearing, Candice?
Well, it doesn't look like it's under control at all. It looks like chaos. I mean, you have thousands of people queuing up outside of an office, trying to figure out what can be done for them, what is available to them. I'm glad that France brought up the fact that Canada used to have a temporary protected status program for Haitians, and ours expired in it initially expired in 2014, and then in 2016, under the Justin Trudeau government, it was completely eliminated, which means that Canada now considers Haiti a safe country. We consider Haiti a safe country. We removed our moratorium on deportation. So we do deport people back to Haiti, the similar program that the United States has that is set to eliminate in January. So it's unfortunate. It's incredibly unfortunate that all of these people are receiving information that's leading them to come to Canada, because Canada is not the safe haven. We don't have a protected program, temporary program for Haitians any longer, which means that the bulk of these folks, unfortunately, are going to be deported at great cost to the Canadian taxpayer. And it's unfortunate for these individuals to have to go through being uprooted again and again and again. You know, they were in the US, presumably many of them have lives there. They created roots, and they're uprooting themselves based on false information, coming to Canada. Eventually, they're going to go through our process, and in the meantime, they're going to be eligible to collect all kinds of benefits, all kinds of welfare at the cost of the taxpayer. And what we've been finding in recent years is that Haitian refugee asylum claims get rejected at an alarming rate. 1 year, it was only 38% of these folks who were accepted as bona fide refugees according to Canadian and international law, and the remainder are going to get deported back to Haiti. So, you know, I think that the Trudeau government, maybe their heart's in the right place, but the information that they're putting out there is not helping these folks. It's not helping Canada. You know, we want to have a reputation as being a welcoming country, but you know, we're putting people through this very unfortunate situation based on false information, giving them false hope. At the end of the day, I think it would be much better off if we just stop people before they entered Canada, give them the information at the border,
so Candice,
let them know
I
very
hear what
clearly.
You're saying there, and you're mentioning the false hope that some people might be coming under the auspices of. But I wanted to play a video comment from someone in the U.S. who explains just what it is, the risk, the fear that people are feeling in the U.S. and why they might take that journey anyway. This is Farah, and this is what she told the stream.
Now, with this administration which wants to end the TPS, so like so many Haitians, over 50,000 Haitian and over 300,000 TPS recipients from different countries, from Africa, South America. So I don't know what's going to happen to my life. I don't know what's going to be my future. So it caused a lot of pressure, a lot of stress, panic, crisis in the immigrant community and among the TPS recipient.
So Jacqueline, she mentions the stress, the pressure, just a crisis of not knowing what's going to happen next. You've talked to people on the border. I know you've been along that border. What are they telling you?
They're saying the same things. I know that people who are looking at this rationally, and I was having this conversation this morning with someone, actually a government official of Haiti, trying to understand why would people not wait? Why would people do this so early when they have TPS? And I said, people are panicked. They are afraid. And a lot of that fear is rooted in not just the fact that a decision was taken in May to only grant TPS for 6 months once it expired in July, but also the letter that people received. They received this letter from the Department of Homeland Security after they renewed their status. And the letter said, you know, we just want to remind you that TPS is only granted for 6 months. And in the event that it is not renewed, you should start preparing to return to Haiti. Well, I wrote that story back in May, but apparently a lot of people did not read it. But when they read this in this letter, they read TPS is over, TPS is done. So when I was on the border, and I was on both sides of the border, the U.S. side as well as the Canadian side, and I approached a lot of the people who were crossing, and many of them Haitians, and I talked to them in Creole, and I said, why are you going to Canada? And he says, didn't you hear Trump doesn't want us? Trump ended TPS. I said, well, no, he has not ended TPS. He has not made a final decision. But they were at the point where their minds had already made up. I had one gentleman said to me, he was surprised when I told him this. He says, well, you know what? I've just come too far to turn back now. I had a mother with, 4 children, 3 of whom were born in the United States. She had been living here for 15 years. She had a job at Walmart. She was from Fort Lauderdale. And this woman decided to pack up her entire life and what she could in a few suitcases and to cross into Canada. She says, look, I cannot go back to Haiti. What am I going to take care of my children? What am I going to do? My mother and my sister both died in an earthquake. Their father just died here in the United States. People are basically in a situation where they just don't know. And then outside of the TPS, you have individuals who came up through the Brazilian track, 7,000-mile journey. They walked for months, sometimes 4, 5, 6 months. People died along this route. They were given temporary work permits in the United States while their asylum cases was making it through the courts. And what did they say to me? They said, listen, I'm not basing my decision on rumors. I'm basing it on facts, on what I know. This person, that person, people who they personally knew went into immigration for their status update. You have to check in, and these people were deported. I spoke to one gentleman who was among a family of 9, and he went to immigration for his update, and they took his passport and they said, we are deporting you back to Haiti. We want you to go home, get your daughter, and to come back. His 15-year-old daughter was in school. Rather than go back to DHS, he ran to the Canadian border. So this is the panic and the fear that people are dealing with, on top of the fact that there is out there in social media, on WhatsApp, on Facebook, all of this information that says Canada is offering free residency, go to Canada, people portraying themselves as immigration lawyers, immigration consultants. It's even on the radio in Haiti.
If I could just jump in, I think that this is another problem that we're seeing, is an entire industry of human smugglers and people smugglers, individuals who prey off of individuals who are vulnerable, and they do this to make a living. We've seen this highlighted. There was a really interesting report done by the Rebel Media that highlighted a human smuggling ring that was happening in upstate New York, where they were bringing individuals from all over the United States into Canada. This isn't just the Haitian community that's being affected. Canada has been struggling with this surge of illegal border crossers coming in through this one crossing in upstate New York into Quebec and Ontario. And I think that the government of Canada had the opportunity to jump in front of this and create very clear language that Canada does in fact have some of the strictest immigration procedures and policies in the world. And it's unfortunate for individuals who might have built a life in the United States. They don't want to go back to Haiti. But I don't know what this has to do with Canada. And I think, trying to bring Canada in as an opportunity, maybe that they can, find another refuge. It just, as Mr. Holland said off the top of the program, there's a limit to Canada's ability to resettle people. There's a limit to our generosity. And the program is meant to be for the most persecuted people who are bona fide refugees who are facing persecution. Somebody who left Haiti because of an earthquake, Haiti's been able to rebuild. My question to people in the Haitian community is, why not go back to Haiti?
Haiti has not rebuilt past the earthquake, and I think that's one of the issues that's out there in terms of this whole debate about temporary protected status.
Who's going to rebuild it if people refuse to go back to Haiti? At some point, it's individuals from Haiti. It's their responsibility to help rebuild their country, to make it a place that other people will want to live and want to rebuild. I would encourage people from Haiti, why not go back and try to rebuild your own country?
But would you not also
Well,
say that Canada, after the United States, is one of the largest donors to Haiti? And so the question should also be with Canada in terms of, given that its involvement in Haiti, what is Canada's opinion in terms of Haiti's reconstruction after the earthquake? And what has Canada done in terms of the assistance that it has provided? And does it think that the conditions in Haiti are drastically improved since the 2010 earthquake?
Let me just bring in France, because Candice, hold tight for a moment, because you did ask, you asked a question that I know a lot of people are thinking as they're watching this. France, go ahead.
Yes, we need to ask Canada what have they done in the past decades to keep Haiti in that permanent earthquake. I mean, what happened in 2010, it's nothing compared to what has been happening in the past decades in the States. Do you know that if you go on the government Canadian and the US website, they would warn citizens from Canada and the States to be careful where they're walking and so on. There is risk of violence, there is risk of being kidnapped, and they even go and say, listen, if you are from the diaspora, if you're Haitians from the States of Canada, you are at greater risk to have violence and kidnapping. So why are we having that double tax? We need to see why Haiti is where it is now in the past since 2004, and where Canada has contributed to have that permanent
France, that is such a giant question, and it's not going to stop necessarily people crossing the border irregularly, illegally, literally happening as we speak. I want to share something with you, because you've all talked about misinformation. This is a lady called Miss Carol, and this, I'm not going to say she's giving out bad information, but she's doing it on YouTube. Have a listen to what she's been advising people to do. Have a listen.
Did you know you can move to Canada, you can go to Canada as a refugee while living in the United States? Anyone right now living in the United States who's an immigrant from another country can move to Canada, can go to Canada as a refugee.
France, you are trying to process people's asylums paperwork. What's the best advice you can give people if they're watching, if they've got Haitian friends and family and they are panicked? In a nutshell, what would you tell them?
I certainly would tell them, listen, you have to be informed. You have to go through the proper channel, the processes, and you may be, unfortunately, refused to stay in Canada. There's a great chance to be one of the 50% people that would not be staying. And what I need to tell you as well, because of what's happened in the States, in Haiti, people are taking a chance. It's throwing a dice to say, listen, I'm going to take a risk. And from the Brazil on, they go through 10 countries or 11 countries, seeing bodies being decomposed, and this is the motivation to come here. Because of laws and because of treaties and conventions we have signed with other countries, that's what makes Canada a great country, which I'm proud to be. And we have to go through the process and respecting our commitment and accepting people because there's rules, there's laws we have signed, there's treaties we have signed, and go through the process, and we need to educate them about what the process is going to be, because we as a committee has been going through that since 2014. We have a lady which is the spokesperson of our brother and sister has been here since 2004 and so since 2010, and she's trusted us. She was the ideal person we thought she would be accepted. And guess what? She has received her deportation letter about 3 weeks ago, and she's going through the last process, which is called the ER, which is Evaluation de Risque Avant Renvoi, and there's only 2%. She has only 2% chance, and she's been working really hard, fully integrated, sending money back home, got involved in the church.
So France, you were saying most of the people who are actually lining up to cross the border to Canada, their chances are almost zero. Let me show you this. Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada, the IRCC. This is what they're putting out to people right now. In 2016, half of all asylum claims made by Haitian nationals were rejected and the claimants were obligated to leave Canada. That's the hard truth. Malika, what do you have?
I will end with this from Angeles, who says Trudeau could be well-intentioned, but he's mostly focused on PR. So what happens to refugees after those selfies? And of course, this is the story the stream will continue to follow.
Thank you to France and Candice and Jacqueline for being part of our conversation today. Really appreciate your time. We're always online with the hashtag AJStream. Take care.